Flip the mic on. Slide it towards you.
Yeah, it's working.
There are demons inside this PA system, let me tell you. So good evening, everyone. And this is our November Lyceum. And before I introduce our presenter tonight, let me just tell you about some of the things that are coming up for the next 3 months or so. In December, we have a presentation of a video called Dreaming of a Jewish Christmas. Now this, on the surface, seems like a very strange thing for this assembly. But I'm telling you that this is really quite interesting. So let me just read you a little bit what it says about this. Dreaming of a Jewish Christmas is a 2017 documentary by Larry Weinstein that explores the significant contributions of Jewish American songwriters such as Irving Berlin, Mel Torme, to the American secular Christmas holiday music. The film features musicologists, comedians, and performers who discuss the irony and poignancy of these Jewish immigrants shaping a quintessential Christian holiday, with performances set humorously in a Chinese restaurant. The documentary has been broadcast by PBS stations in the United States. I actually saw a preview of it. I thought it was really great. I think all of you will really enjoy it too. So please plan to come to that. In February, the February presentation will be by Carole, and it will be a travelogue of his recent trip to Scandinavia.
Oh, wow.
In March, I will be presenting the USS Monitor, the Civil War technological innovation that changed naval warfare. It's an odyssey with many facets. This is not just going to be about dimensions and facts, and, how big this thing was. Yes, it's going to be that, but it's also the other half of it. It's going to be about the human element of the men who served on this ship, because that is really quite fascinating. So I think that you agree when you hear me give this presentation in March. That's on March 11th. Then on April 8th, we have the art and craftsmanship of John Brooks. John Brooks is an artist and the husband of our bridge minister, Jamie Boyle. Born in Manchester, New Hampshire, he earned his Bachelor of Fine Arts and Master of Fine Arts at the Rochester Institute of Technology. He has taught and lectured at the Penland School of Crafts, the Haystack School of Crafts, the Center of Furniture Craftsmanship in Maine, among many others. He's highly regarded nationally and internationally as a furniture maker and sculptor. I'm not going to tell you about the rest of the programs for the rest of the year because you'll forget. And so will I. But I'll come back and I'll remind you of what those are later on. So, tonight we have our privilege of having Jackie Kennedy here with us. It's actually Carole Whittier, and she's back for another in a series of History Has Served, the culinary delights of the U.S. presidents from the founding fathers to modern day. Carole.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for that, and I'm very excited about this presentation. So let me describe a little bit of how I decided to get to this particular Lyceum, because my previous Lyceums, it's been the history of food during an era, like the 1700s. I started when our church was turning the 225th anniversary, so I was like, well, I want to do, something that's in the 1700s. So then I decided to do the 1800s, which I had to divide in two, so I did 1800s in the Americas and then 1800s in everywhere else in the world. But I had gone to a auction here, Jim's Auctions, and saw this book, White House Cookbook. It's, my print is, I think, from 1907, but it's originally printed in 1887. And this intrigued me very much. Of course, I keep cookbooks. I have like a whole library of them. And that made me want to divulge in this more. So then I'm like, well, I'm going to do about all the meals at the White House. I found out really quickly that that was a lot of information, and I could probably do 5 other Lyceums on state dinners, the first ladies, everything. However, I boiled it down to the presidents and their favorite foods, and that's what this Lyceum is about. It is going to be about them, and there's an interesting fact about every single president we've had, and I figured I'd start there, and in the future maybe I will consider doing one of those other ones as well, but there's a lot of information on that. So I figured I would get to the basics, and we'll learn about that, and we'll go from there. So this Lyceum, you can thank Jim George. So let's see. But we will start with the White House. This is a drawing by James Hoban from 1792. This is the original plan of the White House. That's obviously a current day picture of it. The Oval Office, where presidents hold critical meetings and shape the course of the nation, is not only a place of diplomacy, but also one where personal preferences and traditions comes to life. From hearty meals to favorite snacks, the food choices of our leaders reflect their tastes, political philosophies, and cultural influences. Construction began when the first cornerstone was laid in October of 1792. George Washington chose the site for the White House, but never lived there. President John Adams and First Lady Abigail Adams moved into the unfinished residence in 1800. Originally called the President's Palace on early maps, the building was officially named the Executive Mansion in 1810 to avoid connotations of royalty. Although the name White House was commonly used from about the same time because the mansion's white-gray sandstone contrasted strikingly with the red brick of the nearby buildings. It did not become the official name of the building until 1901, when it was adopted by President Theodore Roosevelt. The White House is the oldest federally built building in the country's capital. In 1800, the entire federal government was relocated from Philadelphia to Washington. John Adams moved into the presidential mansion on November 1st, and the next night wrote in a letter to his wife, quote, "I pray heaven bestow the best of blessings on this house and all that shall hereafter inhabit it. May none but honest and wise men ever rule under this roof." At the insistence of President Franklin Roosevelt, the quotation was inscribed on the fireplace of the state dining room immediately below the portrait of President Abraham Lincoln. As you can see, it's right here, and that's a close-up of that. We're going to start now into the founding era of the early republic. We're going to look at some of the most notable food preferences of the U.S. presidents. So George Washington, we're going to start with him. There are going to be some more details on some presidents and other ones not as much. So don't think we're going to have a huge dissertation on, 45 presidents. George Washington lived in 2 different residences as president, New York City and then Philadelphia. He hosted formal dinners, but they were not yet called state dinners. They were small, elegant affairs with foreign diplomats and political leaders. His, quote, Thursday dinners, unquote, were most noteworthy. He used them as a social strategy to build relationships, strengthen his administration, and present an image of stability and elegance. Meals featured 15 to 20 different dishes that included colonial staples, roasted meats, vegetables, puddings, cherry pie, and wine. His favorite was Madeira wine, which is a wine fortified with brandy, which results in an increased alcohol content. Seating followed strict rules of protocol and hierarchy. Men and women actually sat separately. The first president of the United States had a reputation for enjoying simple, hearty meals. Washington's favorites included hoe cakes, a type of cornmeal pancake or Johnny cake, doused with honey and butter, which he often paired with 3 cups of tea every morning, or sometimes with whiskey. He also enjoyed fish like trout, sturgeon, and wild game such as venison and pheasant. His meals were straightforward but reflected the agricultural life of the time. John Adams. John and Abigail Adams were New Englanders who grew up on simple, frugal fare, but they also appreciated a variety of cuisines and fine foods, which they enjoyed while living in other cities such as Paris, London, New York, and Philadelphia. Although well-versed in elegant entertaining, the Adamses generally served simple dinners at the White House. Menus often included of their New England favorites. This was due mostly because to the fact that the White House was brand new. They moved into it when it was still being built. Of course, it was imperative that there be some official celebration of the opening of the new executive mansion. Finally, plans were completed, and the big reception was scheduled for New Year's Day, 1801. This was the day the White House was formally opened to the public, and the preparations were elaborate. This was the Adams' most lavish reception. Tea, coffee, punch, and wine were served. There were also cakes and tarts, all baked in the new brick ovens built on either side of the enormous kitchen fireplace. In addition, they had curds, creams, trifles, jellies, floating islands, syllabub, Indian pudding, apple pandowny, sweetmeats, and assorted fruits graced the tables and were passed among the guests. Everything after the New Year's Day reception, though, was anticlimactic. Because of the short time left in office, the Adams did very little additional formal entertaining. So they had one big blowout for the New Year's to welcome everyone into the new house, and that was about it. Thomas Jefferson. He's a man of refined tastes. He introduced many French culinary influences to America. He spent several years in France as the U.S. ambassador and brought back a love for French wine, which was his greatest field of expertise. Fine cheeses, soufflés, and braised meats. Jefferson even deserves credit for bringing ice cream to the United States, which became a favorite treat in the White House. Jefferson is credited with popularizing macaroni and cheese. He even brought a pasta machine back to America. However, it was Jefferson's chef, James Hemans, who was the first American to train as a chef in France, who perfected the mac and cheese recipe. So now we're going to go to the 19th century, from intimate dinners to grand banquets. James Madison, his favorite food is Virginia ham. It was noted that James Madison didn't eat very much. He was the smallest president at 5'4" and 100 pounds. However, he did enjoy his state's smoked ham. By the way, a Virginia ham is dried, cured, salted, and smoked over a period of months, giving it a bold and salty flavor. James Monroe liked spoon bread. According to George Mason, the founding father who gave us the Bill of Rights, spoon bread was born at Ashlawn Highland, Monroe's home, when a dish of cornmeal mush was baked in the oven. This happy experiment resulted in a nice, crusty pudding. Monroe hosted the first dinner resembling a true state banquet in 1824, hosting governors, senators, etc. John Quincy Adams. Well, I wrote down fruit for him because he didn't leave very many records of his food preferences like the other presidents have. But according to the Massachusetts Historical Society, he really was into gardening. While he was the president and beyond, he grew a variety of plants. He was especially proud of his apple, apricot, peach, and plum trees. So I thought it was fair enough to say that he really did like the fruit. Andrew Jackson. When Old Hickory was in the White House, his state dinners, according to A Rich and Fertile Land, combined haute cuisine with plainer fare, more reflective of his Tennessee roots. One fancy-sounding dish he's known to have served is tenderloin with Jezebel sauce. The funny thing is, according to the Biloxi Sun-Herald article reprinted in the Food Dictator, there is no written record of a sauce by this name prior to the 1950s. Culinarily, Jackson may have been a man well ahead of his time. However, what I found is that what Jezebel sauce really is, it's a sweet and spicy southern condiment made with a combination of apple jelly, pineapple preserves, prepared horseradish, and dry mustard. What he did have is probably some version of this sauce made without the pineapple, because that was very hard to get. One of the most famous food-related spectacles in the White House history occurred during Andrew Jackson's final days in office in 1837. A New York dairy farmer had previously sent him a giant 1,400-pound wheel of cheddar cheese as a gift. Jackson let it age in the White House for nearly 2 years. Finally, on Washington's birthday, he threw open the White House doors to the public for a massive all-you-can-eat cheese party. Can you imagine? Thousands of citizens attended and devoured the entire cheese wheel in about 2 hours. The smell and stains reportedly lingered in the carpets for months after. Can you imagine that cleaning that up? Oh my goodness. Martin Van Buren, his favorite was boar's head. The dish became one of his favorite Christmas traditions, complete with a boar's head crowned with holly. Maybe we should get one of those for the Hollyberry Fair. No, Karen's saying no.
Although I do have a boar, I will.
Oh, there you go. William Henry Harrison. His was squirrel stew. Back in the 1840s, squirrel was a dish fit for a president. He handed out free squirrel stew at voter rallies. And John Tyler, chess pie. He had 15 children that are known. He loved a type of pudding that he dubbed Tyler pudding, which according to the manuscript's cookbook survey, Tyler pudding wasn't really a pudding per se, but was identical to the southern staple we now know as chess pie. James K. Polk, ham and cornbread. He refused to eat unfamiliar food due to cholera pandemic, so he only ate things that were familiar to him. This is particularly interesting because when he campaigned down in Louisiana, he refused to eat any of the food there because he didn't know what that was, and he said he insisted on having only ham and cornbread. Zachary Taylor, classe tout chaude. It's Creole for beautiful callus, still hot. They're actually sweet rice dumplings. He is possibly the only U.S. president to die from food. He consumed some cherries and milk right before his death. And I've looked into this because I wanted to know if anyone had passed away from that. And years after his death, they found that in his contents of his stomach. And so I don't know if he had an allergic reaction, they don't know that, but he had some kind of digestive problem that caused him to expire. So he might be known as the only one that had a problem with that and passed away. Millard Fillmore, resurrection pie. Made from whatever leftovers were available, thus resurrecting the food. Had the first modern kitchen stove made out of cast iron installed at the White House. So, good for the chefs there. Franklin Pierce. Well, we all know him. He's from New Hampshire. Unfortunately, he is not a well-liked president and didn't do a lot, but he did like Fanny Daddies, and Fanny Daddies are basically clam fritters. It shows his New England heritage. James Buchanan, sauerkraut. He had a Scots-Irish background, but one of his favorites was honest German dish, sauerkraut. And Abraham Lincoln, he liked corn cakes. He loved his wife's almond cake, however, so if you look up what sometimes what food is related to Abraham Lincoln, it almost always comes up with his wife's cake. But his actual taste ran more to something plainer and more savory. According to the Lincoln's Portrait of a Marriage, he once claimed, "I could eat corn cakes as fast as 2 women can make them." He also loved apples and was known to eat the entire apple, core and all. Andrew Johnson, he liked Hoppin' John. So what goes into this not so descriptively named dish? It is usually made of peppers, tomatoes, rice, and black-eyed peas. The last named ingredient there is common in all Hoppin' John recipes. And it is also what makes the dish popular a popular good luck food on New Year's Day. It harkens back to the Civil War, Civil War days when people felt lucky to eat them and it helped them survive. Now the Gilded Age begins. Extravagant affairs were curtailed during Lincoln's time due to the Civil War, and Andrew Johnson's administration was turbulent due to the president's unpopularity. But Grant started a new age in the White House, where the events became more opulent. So Ulysses S. Grant, his favorite food is rice pudding, but Grant's banquet version was anything but plain. It was described as, quote, such a pudding as would make our grandmothers clap their hands with joy, worthy to be embalmed in romance or story, unquote. Wow, that's one heck of a pudding. December 22nd, 1874, President Ulysses Grant and First Lady Julia Grant hosted the first state dinner for a foreign head of state, King Kalakaua of the Kingdom of Hawaii. It was 30 courses and all French cuisine. Wow. Rutherford B. Hayes, he liked plain old corn. Hayes was pretty fond of that. So much so that it rated 18 different mentions in his diary. And among Hayes' favorite recipes were ones for cornbread, corn fritters, and corn soup. And James Garfield, he's another one who likes squirrel soup. James Garfield's own squirrel soup recipe seems to have predated his presidency, but may have roots in his Ohio boyhood. So proud of the recipe was he, though, that he submitted it to the original White House cookbook. It's on page 37, by the way. Published in 1887. Now I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that I was this close of obtaining squirrel to have you sample. But of course, they're plentiful, correct? Well, my husband and I decided to check this out. I'm like, well, I could make some squirrel stew. It's obviously the president's like it, we'll give it a try. We looked it up, and we could obtain squirrel that is able to be eaten. It's safe meat. For one squirrel, it was $100. So that was my limit. I was like, no, that'd be the only thing you'd be sampling tonight. So I decided, I'm sure you were relieved, that we will not be having any squirrel stew tonight. Chester A. Arthur, turtle steak. There was nothing this presidential gourmand liked better than a good sea turtle steak. As per the president's cookbook, he would eat this dish with macaroni to help offset its richness. They are now not able to be caught and eaten anymore because they are protected.
Yeah.
Grover Cleveland, he liked corned beef and cabbage. According to our capital of the Potomac, the president once asked to trade his gourmet grub for the corned beef and cabbage being served in the servants' hall, and later described it as, quote, the best dinner I had eaten in months, unquote. Benjamin Harrison, he liked fig pudding. Benjamin Harrison was really into Christmas, to the point where he was the first president to set up a Christmas tree inside the White House. William McKinley, he liked red flannel hash, which is a dish made from potatoes and red beets. Now, we're going into the early 20th century. This is a formalized tradition. This is the state dining room now. You can still see that fireplace. Where is that? With the same thing on. The state dining room was enlarged in 1902 and redesigned with oak paneling, animal heads, and tapestries that evoke a stately English home. Theodore Roosevelt really liked fried chicken. Theodore Roosevelt was known for his hearty all-American diet. He loved beef, particularly steaks or chops, and enjoyed game meats like quail and venison. In the Oval Office, Roosevelt's meetings often included informal meals, sometimes featuring tea and sandwiches, a reflection of his active and fast-paced lifestyle. His favorite was fried chicken, and he preferred it with white gravy too, as that's how his mother used to make it. From a 1925 account of Roosevelt's presidency called Released for Publication, We learned that the president was even known to eat an entire chicken in one meal. State dinners became official diplomatic tools where the White House Protocol Office began to keep guest lists in order of precedence. William Howard Taft. You like steak? Taft holds the distinction of being the heftiest POTUS to date at 332 pounds. Taft was known to start each day with a 12-ounce steak. Yeah, that's a lot. Woodrow Wilson, Virginia country ham. This was one of the few, quote, well-chosen, unquote, foods his doctor permitted him when his health issues started to impact his presidency. He hosted massive banquets of over 300 guests. Can you imagine your doctor saying, you're having health problems, your heart's bothering you, I'm going to give you a well-chosen food and it's going to be Virginia country ham. I don't think they'll do that today. These are the Prohibition presidents. Prohibition was from 1920 to 1933. They had dry dinners, but these guys bent the rules. Warren G. Harding, his favorite was knockwurst and sauerkraut, presided over the nation during Prohibition, so his dinners of state were booze-free, but his private parties, not so much. He would frequently invite his pals over for the evening of poker and bathtub gin. Harding would always feed his friends the same meal, though, knockwurst and sauerkraut. Calvin Coolidge, he liked jelly rolls. Mrs. Coolidge said that he was a big fan of his veal curry, but the president had more of a sweet tooth. What Silent Cal liked best was a jelly roll filled with strawberry jam or currant jelly and covered with lemon icing. Herbert Hoover, he liked caramel tomatoes. Back when Herbert Hoover occupied the Oval Office, sweet foods were very much in vogue. The Hoovers' cook, Mary Ratley, created a recipe for caramel tomatoes that was a hit with the first family. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, grilled cheese sandwiches. FDR, known for his love of comfort food, often enjoyed hearty American dishes such as roast meats and mashed potatoes. His favorite drink was a dry gin martini. And he had a notorious sweet tooth, indulging in chocolate ice cream, which was a frequent treat at the White House. One of the most famous food-related stories regarding a U.S. president is when Franklin D. Roosevelt served hot dogs to the King and Queen of England in 1939. The incident, often referred to as the, quote, hot dog summit, quote, took place at the Roosevelt's estate in Hyde Park. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, known for prioritizing nutrition and thrift over gourmet cuisine, decided to serve an all-American classic meal of hot dogs, macaroni, mixed vegetables, and tomato salad. The meal caused a minor stir in the media and among social circles, as many wondered if it was appropriate for royalty. The visiting British monarchs, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, reportedly ate the hot dogs with a knife and fork, a detail that has become part of the enduring anecdote, highlighting a cultural difference and a moment of American informality. But one lesser-known detail about FDR's White House dining was the disastrous attempt to modernize the kitchen under the supervision of Henrietta Nesbit. Nesbit, a friend of Eleanor Roosevelt, had no formal experience in cooking, but was tasked to improving the White House kitchen. Eleanor, determined to modernize the White House cooking methods, wanted to integrate a then emerging field of home economics, encouraging nutritious and economic meals. Unfortunately, the results were far from delicious. Despite a major kitchen renovation and the installation of modern appliances, the meals under Nesbit's watch were infamous for being unappetizing. One of the first victims of the new menu was FDR himself. A cart of food featuring deviled eggs with tomato sauce, mashed potatoes, and prune pudding was brought to the president's desk. These meals, intended to be nutritious and affordable, were widely disliked, and even the president choking down his portion. The food became notorious throughout Washington, and many joked that FDR would have preferred the lavish meals of earlier presidencies. No doubt. Mid-20th century glamour and global diplomacy. Henry S. Truman, cornbread and sorghum. He never really took to formal dining, as he'd rather have been eating the foods he grew up with on, like meatloaf and fried chicken. Truman, a Missouri native, was especially fond of one of his home state's products, sorghum, a molasses-like syrup that he would drizzle over cornbread. Dwight D. Eisenhower, he liked beef stew. Eisenhower was an avid and skilled cook who learned to do it as a childhood chore. Among his specialties was a beef stew made with a tomato-based broth and a pinch of cayenne pepper. He had a passion for grilling, and a special grill was even installed on the White House solarium balcony for his personal use. Right here, that picture. President Eisenhower was known for cooking steaks directly on hardwood coals, a method that became known as Eisenhower steak or caveman steak. This outdoor steak technique creates a flavorful charred crust while keeping the inside juicy, and Eisenhower reportedly favored extra thick steaks. September 15, 1959, President Dwight Eisenhower and First Lady Mimi Eisenhower hosted Chairman of the Council of Ministers of the Soviet Union, Nikita Khrushchev, during the height of the Cold War. This was the first state dinner hosted for a Soviet leader. John F. Kennedy, his New England fish chowder. JFK was known for his refined yet simple taste in food, often opting for classic New England fare like clam chowder, lobster, and oysters. He enjoyed cocktails, especially a daiquiri or a scotch, and was also known for snacking on potato chips during meetings. His preferences reflected both his Boston roots and the more casual post-World War II era. At state dinners, JFK would sometimes spend so much time mingling with dignitaries that he would have to be reminded to eat. Jackie Kennedy helped to plan lavish dinner events during their time in the White House. JFK says he's a jelly donut. I know you all know this story. The story goes that John F. Kennedy accidentally declared himself to be a jelly donut when he said, "Ich bin ein Berliner." I wrote that out phonetically. During a speech in West Berlin. There was some tricky German grammar rules at play here, but since Kennedy was saying he was like a Berliner in his heart, not that he literally lived in Berlin, he was in fact expressing his desired, rather nuanced meaning with perfect grammatical correctness. As well, he should have been, since the sentence had been prepared for him by a native speaker. Lyndon B. Johnson, barbecue. President Lyndon B. Johnson had a hearty appetite for classic, heavy Southern cuisine, such as black-eyed peas, tapioca pudding, and venison sausage biscuits. He also was known for his famous barbecues at his Texas ranch, where he often personally oversaw the grilling of copious amounts of ribs and steak for guests and the media, contributing to his, quote, man of the people image. Richard Nixon, he liked cottage cheese and ketchup. Richard Nixon's food choices were simple and comfort-oriented. He enjoyed meals like roast chicken and meatloaf, often accompanied by salted nuts or cottage cheese during meetings. Nixon's snack habits in the Oval Office were indicative of a straightforward and no-nonsense approach to both food and politics. Richard Nixon had a very particular and much-discussed breakfast habit, a bowl of cottage cheese topped with a generous dollop of ketchup. He claimed this unusual combination was a healthy trick he learned from his grandmother. The dish was even served as part of his last meal in the White House before he resigned in 1974. Gerald Ford, his favorite is pot roast and with red cabbage. But he had a tamale incident. At a campaign stop in San Antonio while running for re-election, someone handed Gerald Ford a plate of tamales. Ford peeled back the tin foil wrapper, but not the inedible corn husk beneath, and attempted to take a bite. Some speculated the great tamale incident, even more than any other contributing factors such as opponent Jimmy Carter's relatable Southern roots or the Lone Star State well-known disgust with Nixon, that lost Ford Texas, and its 26 electoral votes. Notably, that was the last time Texas ever went to a Democrat. Late 20th century pop culture meets the presidency. Jimmy Carter. His favorite was cheesy grits. Jimmy Carter had humble roots and grew up growing his own food. While in office, he often served food to organizations and to the White House staff. He loved to grill, flip burgers, and bring people together. And what better way to do that than to play softball and share a big meal? Ronald Reagan. His favorite was jelly beans. Ronald Reagan's Midwestern upbringing influenced his food preferences. Reagan's casual and wholesome food choices made him seem approachable to the American public. He was especially fond of jelly beans, which became a symbol of his presidency. Reagan developed a fondness for jelly beans to help him quit pipe smoking while he was running for governor, and kept jars of them on his desk at the Oval Office and on Air Force One. The Herman Goelitz Candy Company, makers of Jelly Belly beans, ensured he was well stocked throughout his presidency, and special red, white, and blue jars were even given to visiting dignitaries. The manufacturer even provided monthly shipments to keep him stocked. His favorite flavor was licorice, which I love too. George Bush, his favorite was pork rinds. And Bill Clinton, his was enchiladas. So I have a little story of each of those three men. That's why we kind of went through fast with those guys. So Ronald Reagan says ketchup is a vegetable. The legend goes that Ronald Reagan passed a law declaring ketchup to be a vegetable. What actually happened was that his administration spearheaded a 25% budget cut to federal school lunch programs, and the USDA's Food and Nutrition Services scrambled to figure out how to feed as many kids as possible with a lot less money. The FNS proposed a bunch of ideas, but the one that got the most attention was a new rule that said states could include vegetable-based condiments, such as a pickle relish, as part of the 2 required servings of fruit and vegetables. Though ketchup wasn't mentioned specifically, it was easy to extrapolate that the sugary condiment would count as a veggie. There was a huge outcry, so the proposal never went into effect. George H.W. Bush hates broccoli. So all this is everyone's favorite, but he's the one who's the most, who hates the food of broccoli. President George H.W. Bush famously hated broccoli, a sentiment that became a public story after reports he banned it from Air Force One. He was widely quoted as saying, quote, "I do not like broccoli, and I haven't liked it since I was a little kid, and my mother made me eat it. And I'm president of the United States, and I'm not going to eat any more broccoli." This led to California broccoli growers sending several truckloads of the vegetable to the White House in protest, most of which went to a local food bank. And the topic became a reoccurring political vegetable joke. Bill Clinton and fast food. During his presidential campaign in the 1990s, the media often highlighted Bill Clinton's love of fast food, especially McDonald's Egg McMuffins, which he would sometimes get after a morning jog. His weight and eating habits were a subject of public scrutiny and parody on shows like Saturday Night Live. The image of a president-to-be enjoying humble, everyday fast food was seen by some as relatable, though concerns for his health were also raised. He now doesn't eat hardly at all, actually. His diet is very healthy now. 20th century, modern, sustainable, and symbolic. George W. Bush, cheeseburger pizza. which I just need to say, I love cheeseburger pizza, and one of the best ones in town is at Milford House of Pizza. Just saying, it's delicious. Cheeseburger pizza. George W. Bush had a quirky favorite meal that combined two American classics, the cheeseburger pizza. According to the White House chef, he loved a pizza with all the ingredients of a cheeseburger, including beef, bacon, pickles, and even ketchup on top. He was also known for once choking on a pretzel while watching a football game, an event that became a widely reported story. Barack Obama and chili. Barack Obama's food preferences lean towards healthy and contemporary choices. Obama, who valued fitness, favored lean meats, vegetables, and salads, with an occasional indulgence in a burger or enjoy a late-night sandwich. Obama has a noted chili recipe that he loved to make. He also engaged in home brewing beer while in the White House. Barack Obama orders Dijon mustard. President Barack Obama ordered a lunch at Ray's Hell Burger in Arlington, Virginia. I'm going to have your very basic your cheddar cheeseburger, medium well. I just want mustard, no ketchup. You got a spicy mustard or something like that? Dijon mustard or something? Right-wing commentators lost their minds. His desire for Dijon mustard, and to a lesser degree, his spurning of the all-American condiment ketchup, was elitist and fancy. A news host called him President Coupon. Likely confirmation that this teacup tsunami, as one observer called it, was in fact in large part inspired by the 1980s Grey Poupon commercials that aligned the brand with luxury. Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon? Oh, but of course. This, despite the fact that it's made by Kraft Foods in America and costs about as much as French's yellow mustard. Donald Trump. He's the 45th and 47th president, obviously. Fast food and Diet Coke. President Donald Trump's food preferences were fast, familiar, and often associated with comfort. His favorites include McDonald's, hamburgers, fries, and of course Diet Coke. A fun historical tidbit is that Trump had a red button installed on the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, allowing him to order Diet Coke with a push of a button. This quirk became a defining aspect of his presidency. It was removed when he left office. However, once he was reelected, he has now put the button back. And Joe Biden, his favorite is ice cream. Hailing from Pennsylvania, he enjoys foods that reflect his working class roots. He's known for loving comfort foods like cheese steaks, pasta, and his favorite chocolate chip ice cream. Biden's fondness for these dishes highlights his connection to the common American experience and his approachable persona. No squirrel soup. This is what we're serving today on the menu. We will have, from Washington, hoe cakes with honey and maple syrup and butter. We have the cheddar cheese, even though this is not Jackson's favorite food, because if you remember, it was the tenderloin with the Jezebel sauce. But we had that humongous wheel of cheddar cheese, the 1,400-pound wheel of cheese that everyone ate in 2 hours, so we had to have some of that. We have the mac and cheese from Jefferson that he brought over from France. Of course, we have jelly beans, and they are the Jelly Belly ones for Reagan. Oh, that is not right. That down here should be the New England chowder for Kennedy, so I apologize for having that mislabeled. The Calvin Coolidge jelly roll we have. We have chess pie from John Tyler, and we have the Obama chili. And it's his recipe that I got thanks to Bonnie. So, just as a preview for next year, I'm going to go back to my original line of Lyceums, and it's going to be History Served Culinary Delights of the late 19th and 20th centuries, the Gilded Age to the dawn of mass production and processed foods. That's a long name, but basically I'm going to be doing foods from basically 1880 to 1920. That's the time period I'm going to do. And there's a lot of interesting things about how things changed rather rapidly, and it'll be quite interesting. So that's my next one, but the next one is Dreaming of a Jewish Christmas, as Dave had mentioned. I don't know if Jamie is actually speaking at it or not. I don't know if she's going to say any commentary about it, but this is the movie that we'll be showing in December, Dreaming of a Jewish Christmas, and that will be on December 10th. And that's it. Do you have any questions?
That was wonderful.
Thank you. I'm hoping everyone got a little insight of all of the U.S. presidents and all the different foods that they've had, and it certainly reflects the time period. You know, those early presidents, you know, Washington, Lincoln, all those, they really liked, you know, corn and cornmeal. You really couldn't get a lot of flour very easily, you know, so they were basic, you know, basic foods, meats, corn, fruits, that sort of thing. But then it became a little more opulent, and the state dinners started happening, and it went beyond more than just you know talking with your friends or some governors and so forth. It started to become a bigger international guests and that sort of thing. Certainly, when I saw stuff about the state dinners, because I was going to have that be part of this, it became apparent to me that that needs a time of all of its own, because it has so many details and how that's evolved and how elaborate they are now. I know one of the things that's a cool thing of state dinners is that it's a collectible are the menus that are signed by the president and, you know, the first lady and other dignitaries that attend the dinners. That's something that is well desired, are these menus from the state dinners. But they had humble beginnings, and now they're very elaborate dinners. So.
George Murphy used to brag about having squirrel stew as a child.
Really?
And so did Dave.
Oh, really?
So Dave made him squirrel stew.
Oh my goodness.
With squirrels from our backyard.
Really? Yeah, I wasn't going to do that. I'm like, when I saw the cost on that, I'm like, we have like hundreds of them in our yard. But I am not doing that. Like, no way.
Squirrel for a lot less money than $100.
Well, for you hunters out there, there's money in that. You could sell those out to these, you know, posh places for $100 a hit on that, you know, so.
Squirrels are a very typical part of hunters' stew.
See? There you go, that's a little side.
Yeah.
I know, it's like, you know, I should have called Bode in there. A little side hustle there, you know, hustling the squirrel market. All right, well, I have prepared for you those items for sampling. I hope you enjoy. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to ask. And I'm very glad that all of you are here and enjoyed this presentation. Thank you. And feel free to look at the books up here. I have the White House cookbook. Again, on page 37 is the stew from the president there. And I have these other books, a couple of them are borrowed. Dinner with the President, Dining at the White House, Political Flavors, that's from Bonnie. The Resident I got from Natalie Flynn Burris. Take a look at them if you'd like. Thank you.